Check, check, quick sound check. Can everyone hear us loud and clear? How you doing, Coach Paul?
I'm doing well. What a day. How about yourself?
What what a day. Yeah, doing good, doing good. Hopefully our audio's clear. Let's get a confirmation in the chat before we continue.
Okay, check the audio. Check.
Got an audio, video, good confirmation from Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay. I've been a top step performance coach for about 13 months now. I've been trading for about 11 years. Been in the futures markets for about the last 5 years or so. And that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Coach Jay, thank you for the introduction. I've been involved in the futures industry for 4 decades. I've been with Topstep for the past year, about the same time as Coach Jay. I've traded futures, like I said, for almost 40 years. Also a basketball coach and a high school basketball coach. Here to share some wisdom and some lessons and hope I, we can get our traders become better traders. So let's get into it for this big day.
Let's get into it. And if you wondered why the segment was called At the Buzzer, it's for that reason, right? Both of our basketball histories, and the common theme between the two. Coach Paul, you know what is always nice? When you get sounds good, loud and clear from the chat, and we don't have to worry about some audio issues. It's always a good feeling. So we're gonna knock on wood that we have that throughout the entire session, so we can get this information across to our traders. Big day today. We know we had the rate decision yesterday, where the Fed did decide to cut interest rates. 50 basis points, and we didn't see much of a reaction to it in yesterday's trading session where we chopped around in a range. But we talked about, the potential for a trend day on the following day, and that's exactly what we got. There was some news out on the calendar today. We had Bank of England rate statement, where they did not change their rates. Uh, Go ahead.
Yeah, we talked about that. Could be big news, but it really didn't have an effect. The
Not at all.
It started actually on our broadcast yesterday and relented all day.
Right. We had jobless claims number out as well. We know that Powell commented on the labor market yesterday during the press conference, and said that the labor market was in a good place. Jobless claims number comes out today. Actual 219,000. What was expected was 230,000, so a little bit better than what was expected. Coach, I think with that number, you look at revisions a lot. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
any government number I look at, or any economic number, looking at revisions, um, it happens a lot. I just remember my days on the floor with
Mhm.
big numbers, and then it would react differently than the market expected, and the excuse was always, "Well, look at the revision." Um,
Put the real number out first. Uh,
well,
you
as traders, we can't, you know, we have to remain. We talked about this yesterday. No expectations except to execute a plan, and today
correct.
was a perfect example.
100%. Last thing on the news, we had existing home sales come in at, let's make sure I get this number right, 3.86 million. What was forecast was 3.9, so just a little under that forecast. Let's get into the biggest percentage movers on the day. A lot of green on the board, and we'll focus on the downside first. The Japanese yen down 1.04%, wheat futures down 1.61%, and corn futures down 1.7% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. Again, on this quote board, not a lot to the downside. We had to the upside, Nat gas up 2.89%. The Nikkei up 3.08%. If you guys caught slow markets last night, Dakota did say he was in a long in the Nikkei. I think he did hold that trade. overnight. And then, coach, for you, micro Bitcoin futures up 5.26% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside. For the major markets that we trade, we got the NASDAQ up 2.45%, crude oil up 1.73%, the S&P up 1.67%, and where's gold? Up up 0.58% to round out
That
that big
hit it.
four.
Well, we'll review that. I think it hit. Did it hit an all-time high again?
It did overnight. I'm not didn't really look at it too much because there was opportunity in other places, but it did hit another all time high overnight, I believe. But let's get into it. We are on the Nasdaq 30-minute chart. I'm going to pull up your moving averages, Coach. We've been talking about this for a little while. Uh, that 200 moving average. Once we get above it, uh, we start to trend. That's what today was.
And it started as we were talking yesterday. This is a rare event. I mean, we look at yesterday's action and compare it to today, and it's like, oh, it's a blip. But yesterday was a violent day. As we talked, it was violently unchanged. Um, and interestingly, I they waited for the close, or who's they? The market started moving right away on the open last night.
Right.
We had that question yesterday. What were our expectations? And I don't think anyone expected something like this. We talk about possibilities,
Correct.
but I mean, what was it? 80 higher when we opened up
Yeah. So let's
in
frame
the
out
S&P
the
at least.
in the S&P, I believe it was. Let's talk about the Nasdaq real quick. I actually did take a
Okay.
long in the Nasdaq on slow markets with Dakota, and honestly, this was you call it the J trade. I'm going to call this one the Coach Paul trade, where we had the 30-minute opening range, right?
Oh, yes.
And I'm going to anchor a VWAP to that opening range, and we left the range. VWAP left the range after the first hour and a half of the session of the Globex session. I normally don't trade overnight trades, but this one was too good of a setup not to take. The high of this 30-minute opening range was 19,686. And for me, conservative price target was going to be where I got in long here at 686. Conservative price target was going to be this 850 area here. And ultimately, what I did was, the high of the FOMC candle, let's go and test that. Dakota and I talked about the potential for the market to rally up to 20K. It was a trade that I was putting on overnight, so I didn't want to wake up tomorrow to the market being trading at 19,600 and be upset about it. So I'm going to take the points that it presented. That's a 200-point move there. It was on micros, but still, to me, a great trade.
2 micros would be $800.
Exactly. So if anyone ever tells you that there's no potential in micros, yes, there is. Yes, there is. So, uh, just a really nice trend. Again, and I really love this trade, coach. We talk about it all the time. And we can see this pattern on multiple time frames, right? We're looking at a 30-minute chart right now. We could do this on a 3-minute, an hourly, probably even a daily, right? Where we have a range. VWAP leaves that range. The market comes back and tries it, says, no, we're done trading these prices, and just runs from there.
Wow. And that was, I mean, that's what I call allocation. What
Hmm.
do I mean by that? These are higher time frame or institutional buying. This
Correct.
isn't mom pa opening up a small account, because if you look at VWAP, it was relentless buying.
All day.
All day, all night, really.
Oh, yeah, really all night. We can't even really say all day because by the time we got to the New York session, it seemed like everybody was already done trading. I do want to talk about a little bit, that delta analysis that we saw in the ES when we get to the ES charts.
Hmm.
But on a higher time frame, we've been talking about this market looking very strong from we were talking about that, 19,200 around. I'm going to put
Hmm.
the moving averages back on, coach. We're above the daily 200 moving average. The 20 is still below the 50 currently, but probably going to cross sometime very
Oh,
soon. ES made new all-time highs today. NASDAQ isn't far.
Now, let's put a trend line from that all-time high.
You're gonna challenge my drawing skills.
Yes, I am. This is how we get better, right, coach? But no, put it to the high. There you go. Now let's look at what happened. Will you go back and test that? I mean, that's a almost, well, I'll go to my GAN days. That's almost a 45-degree angle.
Mhm.
That's really powerful for old school trend line traders. Um, and that's on a daily. So that doesn't happen too often. Not surprised but that it happened, but I was surprised just how powerful it moved overnight. I mean, so that brings to the next question, coach. When you, let's say you went to sleep last night and you woke up and you saw this opening, it
Yeah,
creates a dilemma.
100%.
Um, my thought was, speaking of coach's candles, the J trade. So bringing it down to a lower time frame from the opening in the US,
Okay.
the 8 the 9:30 8:30 opening.
Here is the New York Open. We are gonna make that a different color so we know what it is. The green rectangle right there is the New York Session Open.
So there's the green that so if if I was looking at it just on a price basis, I mean what I mean is wow, we're like 300 higher,
Mhm.
right? It'd be hard to buy it,
100%.
if not impossible. So I bring this up. This is a dilemma you're probably going to face in day trading. It doesn't happen all the time, but if it be, you might shy away from opportunity. But using Coach J's 3 minute, anchoring that VWAP, or I want to buy it. I don't want to. I personally, if you sold it, let's just take the sell side.
Yep. Because
You,
there was a decent there was a decent sell this morning,
yeah.
right? This one
Um,
right here, a reversion back where we're so high up, right? We had a at that point a 400-point move, 2%. Is it out of the question to see some profit taking above 20K? I don't think so.
yeah.
But if you sold it, coach.
But if you sold it, look what VWAP doesn't leave the opening range. We were talking about that yesterday.
Mhm.
Um, what does that mean? There was no follow through selling. So that selling was most like I could define it as profit taking, or a big entity trying to see if it's going to break, if they can sell it, whatever it is. That the result was VWAP did not leave the range. What does that mean? The volume was light on the sell side. The sellers had no longer control over volume. And interestingly enough, we got, as soon as we got over VWAP,
That was pretty much it. Right.
yep,
We can see where those sellers failed, right? The sellers came in here. The low of the opening range was 20,025. They tried to push it through the major, and we can't even call that a major level, super psychological level 20,000, where everyone who's trading the NASDAQ is going to know when we're trading 20,000. So, great place to look. We talked about this a little bit last week. Great place to look to see the market sentiment at some of these major levels. Now, this is the NASDAQ, so it is not going to respect the level the same way other markets might. But and I think, saying that sometimes allowing the level to trade out and then getting it on the recovery is the better trade, right? The Nasdaq came down to 19,963. If you're trading one lot minis, and you are getting long, saying, "Hey, 20,000 is a major support or a major level. I want to buy it there." There's going to be some stops under here where we get a move like this, right? So a 40, do you have a 40-point drawdown in your trading plan, or do you get long here and then, get upset because you get stopped out, and now you might switch your bias and say, well, forget it, I'm going to short it. No, you had the right idea. Your trade location could be wrong, or your timing could be wrong. So I really do like letting, and we have another example of that later on in the day, letting the NASDAQ test the level. And then if you really like it, getting it on the other side, um, especially at some of these major levels.
Yeah, but especially the fact that it couldn't, it, it couldn't follow through, right?
Right.
I just remember being in the pit. All of a sudden, on something like that, it'd be open, and you'd have follow through selling, and then it gets real quiet.
Hmm.
That eerie, it would just be eerie quiet. It's like, okay, the sellers have stopped, and all of a
Now
sudden,
what?
it starts ticking the other way, and it gets loud. Um, that this kind of action reminds me of that.
Yeah. And then we kind of just
Oh,
we
coach, before we go forward,
yeah,
John Brantley asks, how do you determine which candle to use to anchor VWAP? Great question.
great question, John. For me, it is going to be any high volume event. Now, not any, because then you'll have 1,000 VWAPs. So you do need to use some discretion. So for me, the easiest way is going to be any major market open. So New York session open, you can do one for, the London session as well when we see volume coming in. But I'll show you where my anchored VWAPs were. The important ones, I'm going to leave one for FOMC because that was probably the highest volume event we had all week, maybe even all month in a 3-minute candle. So I'm going to leave one there, and then I will also have one. I usually, if you just use session VWAP, you get this one here where it's, every Globex open, you're going to get a VWAP there. That's this yellow one here, right? So this is the entire day session. The green one is going to be New York session, and then the red one is FOMC. So I'm going to anchor to any high volume events. And there's other ways you can do it too. You can anchor if you get, a little more narrowly focused. You can anchor to uh, intraday levels, right? A swing high, right? Once the market makes this high, looks like it's going to reverse, I can anchor a VWAP there. Pretty nice resistance on that way down, right? Where yes, from the price action, the market is selling off, but do I want to sell it at 21.20, or do I want to sell it at 21.50? If I sell it at 21.50, coach, I'm closer to volume. If I sell it at 21.20, I might get stopped out before the market ultimately goes in my favor. So go ahead.
Coach, that's a great example. Even right there, let's say I wanted to buy it. I'm I'm like bullish, and I feel like I've missed out, right?
Hmm.
So I decide to buy it at those highs, and I anchor it to the candle that I bought it in.
Hmm.
So what's going to determine if I'm wrong? To me, volume.
Right. Let's
So
say
if
you
I buy it there and it
let's,
closes under VWAP, am I swimming against the stream?
you're
Yeah,
in the Shark Tank. We
I,
haven't
I
mentioned that
hope.
Shark Tank in a little while, but you're buying
Yeah,
in the Shark Tank down here.
yeah, we haven't heard that. Uh, what is it, Coach?
You're buying in the Shark Tank, right? Sorry, if you're selling down here, if you're selling all the way down here after this move, you're selling in the Shark Tank, right? Where you're asking for a push, and this is where the shark is turning around. We got to remember we're all little fish, and when you're the little fish, you want to
Swimming in
kind of
front of the
latch
shark.
on and go for a ride, right? You don't want to be making this charge. Shark turns around, eats all the small fish, and then gives us an opportunity to go back the other way. So yeah, anchoring that VWAP to pivots, I think is great. Coach, like you just said, anchoring it to the candle that you entered on. Um, and then I see another question as well uh, from Mohammed. What time frame is best to anchor it? Uh, I use the 30-minute For a lot of the longer time frame anchors, I'll use a 30-minute. Intraday anchors, I'm going to use a shorter time frame. So whether you use a 1, 3, 5, 15, but for my longer term anchors, I'm going to use a 30-minute. And we do have, speaking of Anchor VWAP, got the book right here. Shout out to Brian Shannon. He is going to be on Topstep TV on the 24th next week. He wrote the book on Anchored VWAP. I tune into every time he's on Topstep TV. I love this book, and being a volume analyst, it's helped me a lot in my own trading. Um, I've been asking to get on a segment with him just so we can nerd out about VWAP. I don't know how many people would listen, but I think it would
Maybe
be
we'll invite
entertaining.
him for us for our
Right.
program.
Exactly. But yeah, really good question about the anchors. There is some discretion, just like a lot of intraday trading is. Uh, use your discretion for where you want to place it. But high volume events, pivots is a good start.
And I would add to that the first, whatever your time frame is that
Hmm.
you execute, or even higher, just get it. But absolutely, to me, the first, the opening, whatever it is, I look at the half hour. Um, and anchor it to that where the market opens. You could anchor it to a 3 minute, 1 minute, 5 minute. But what happens on the opening and volume? It's,
Yep.
it's usually the largest
Largest of the
volume of
day.
the day.
Last thing I want to point out in the Nasdaq, we did take a trade. Was that a No, we took an ES trade, so I'll talk about it then. So let's switch over to the ES real quick. I do want to point out a few things in the S&Ps. We had yesterday, we had that. Anyone remember what that number was?
I do. That was my pivot today. I forgot.
57.30. 57.30. So we talked about this 57.30 a lot yesterday. JD, if you're here, I know you mentioned looking to take a long from there. We never truly got down there. But 57.30 was that iceberg order that we saw yesterday, right? And then we had the
Was
conversation
it
about.
1500 lot?
So it was 6,700 contracts traded at that price, positive 4,700 delta. So
Oh,
about 60% at one price, right? Positive 4,700 delta at one price. If you're questioning, what that kind of means, I would suggest going back to yesterday's video and watching that discussion that we had, and then applying it to today. We were talking about whether or not those were short coverers or new buyers coming into the market. Right now, that much size, we talked about, what might the risk parameters be on something that large, right? If we're going with the assumption that that's one market participant, right? Of course, it's a bunch of them. But if I'm buying for a potential all-time high, this little pullback is not scaring me out of the position. I'm probably buying more down here. Right. If I'm prepared to continue buying the market until we get to an all-time high, that 4,700 contracts or whatever it is, that might be a portion of my position. And again, I'm going with the assumption that this is a buy to open. And then if we can see it in the overnight, we got this random spike of volume during the Asian session open. We reject right off of that 57.30. I actually took that short just with one MES for a quick scalp because it rejected right at that level. But coach, once we got above that and settled above it,
that
that was
was
it.
that was my interesting. It wasn't my pivot. It was my first resistance
Hmm.
on the on my daily numbers.
Got you.
Um, and I just when I got there, I do remember that. I forgot the size, but I go, and you're right. It closed above that, which and once again, here, anchor a VWAP to that. Oh, really? Okay, so we don't go through it. The second time we get through it, it's anchor we VWAP when it. Now, one clear point here is we touched it right on price.
Hmm.
So it was just a quick price. It was a wick.
Yep.
A wick tells you there's not much volume. So the first time we get there, we don't close above it. Let's do it when we close above there.
Yeah, a little different. Candle closes are important, right? The market deciding that yes, I'm going to close above these prices can be pretty important.
So Boy, this is a good session today because I didn't even think of that. What you could put that anchor that VWAP to your time frame and let the volume go with you. If the volume's not going with you, you're probably wrong.
Yeah. Or and if you're not, yeah, if you're wrong on the direction, you could still be right on the trade, but you're counter the trend. You're going against the flow at that point.
That can help make smaller losses.
100%.
If you've ever been stuck and buying something, then you're like you can get when I mean stuck is you're dealing with hope, and hope is a four-letter word. It has if you when I used to hear myself go, God, I hope this turns around.
Get
It was
out.
like
Get
it's
out.
like
Run. Run the other way.
denial. All right, but one thing when I was on the floor, I could only guess the volume. I
Mhm.
could hear it, but with here, this is real. This is like I've said before, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't here. I'm against the volume.
Uh, we got a couple of questions about does Topstep X support anchored VWAP? 100%, right? I'm using it here.
The-
Uh, on the drawing tools on the left side, one, two, three, four, five icons down, you're going to click, and that should be forecasting and measurement tools. Click that right arrow, and then halfway down that menu, you have anchored VWAP. I just use it as a favorite because I use it all the time. And then it's just this candle with the line going through it. Icon. And then you just click. I wish there was a hotkey. I might put in a because on Quantower I just do I just hit the V key and it's VWAP. I use it so much that I need it like logistics, right? Like just click and go. The one other thing I want to talk about is we talk all the time about framing out the high and low of the news candles. 57.55 was the high of that FOMC reaction. I don't even think it was worth m- you know today, at least, we didn't see much of a reaction to the news that came out this morning, the jobless claims number. So you could have framed that out, but I didn't see much of a reaction to it. I think that FOMC candle having more volume was more important. And again, if we look at where the S and P's when the session opened, give me 1 second. Let me make sure we do this correctly. Coach, I'm going to anchor a VWAP to Globex Open, so 5 p.m. Central. I did see that question as well. Globex Open is just when the market starts trading again. So when we open up, we are 20 points above this VWAP, which isn't a whole lot, but again, a retest of that, a retest of the high of the FOMC candle. And if we look at the difference, Coach, you said that the NASDAQ anchored VWAP never left that opening range. The
Yeah,
S&Ps were a little different.
they
And
were.
and again, so if I'm reading this, because I might be the trader that says, you know what, we're up 2% on the day. Let's say I don't have this anchored VWAP here, and I'm not aware that this is the high of the FOMC candle. I might get in this short because on a shorter time frame, that's a trade setup that we talk about all the time.
Mhm.
The market left the range to the low. VWAP left the range to the low as well.
In
You
a
have
hurry.
in a hurry. 6 minutes into the market and we're selling off a little bit, right? That is a 20-point trade. That could have been your one trade for the day, and you were done after 15 minutes.
Yeah, and look at the wow, that
But
was a lot different than the Nasdaq.
a lot different. And it presented a trade opportunity. But let's say you were the trader that said, no, we need to, this overnight range is crazy. What are these people doing buying this? We need to trade all the way back down to the lows. But you're not taking into account the higher time frame picture, right? Where it's important to zoom out, whether just zoom all the way out on your small time frame or look at a 30-minute. But the high of that news candle, and again, the VWAP for the session is where you should be taking profits because at this point you're against the flow, right? So is it a trade that you could have taken 100%, but you're against the flow, so you have to start thinking about taking profits in logical areas. Um, and again, the trend was done by the time we got to the New York session. We got a little bit of an extension of it. Yes, making all-time highs, new all-time highs at 57.97, but Yeah, those shorts were short-lived, short-lived.
Um, let's get into some questions. We get a lot of comments about the volume. First one is between anchored VWAP and moving average,
Mhm,
which one gets more weightage? Very good question. I think they're two different, it's the difference between a hammer and a screwdriver, depending on what you're looking at. But from my opinion, VWAP, because it has volume in it,
mhm.
means more. That is the distinction. It's really the hybrid between a moving average and a volume.
Yep, and some platforms do have volume weighted moving averages. I think they're kind of very similar to VWAP, but yeah, I would agree with you on that one, Coach. And maybe I'm biased, uh, but the anything that tells me volume tells me a lot.
And then one other question, Brian Lemus. Sorry, kind of new. How do you check? Know what the volume is telling you? I'm going to hand it off to Coach. I'm going to make a pass to Coach Jay because he's the master.
I'm gonna shoot that one every time, Coach. So first, what you're gonna do is, some type of volume indicator, right? Whether it's a volume under your charts, whether it's a VWAP, something to kind of give you an idea of how market participants are executing trades. Uh, and then, personally, I would just say watch, right? Before you try to understand it, watch, and you'll recognize patterns the same way we recognize, head and shoulders or things like that. You'll recognize patterns in the volume that play out time and time again. Uh, for example, when we have this selling here, and this looks like selling exhaustion, right? Some of you that have joined us for a little while, this is a selling exhaustion move. We talked about it. Heavy volume at the low of a move looks like a rejection. And once we get a close above that, right, and it matches up with some other patterns that we might have seen, right, three bar reversals and things like that. For me, this volume is going to give me that added confidence that the market is done trading these prices, right, where they tried to push it and it didn't go lower. If you're new, and who was that, Brian? There are some videos in the Top Step Coaches Library in Discord under the Coach J tab that uh, we have a couple more just like detailed classes on volume. And I actually had someone in the VIP asked to do a full segment again, kind of update that. Coach, we did those, I think, 8 months ago now, where we could
Yeah.
probably update it with our explanations a little bit better. But I would suggest taking a look at those if you haven't already. And if you have questions, just hit me up in Discord and we can talk about it.
And one last comment on that. The difference now with VWAP being able, that's real time volume. Um, Before that, would you just kind of guess at what the volume was doing?
Mhm.
So start with one of you talked about it, Coach. Observing. Start with observing VWAP and the volume bars, and not making a judgment, but see how price or the market reacts at certain levels. Start with VWAP, um, because that is it moves.
Yeah.
So, and tune in every day, and also smash that like button. Please
Hit
do
it
it. It's
Hit it once, hit it thrice, just don't hit it twice because you'll take away our likes. Uh,
wow, I didn't know. Coach Jay writes
used to,
some
used
rap.
to,
Yeah,
used to back in the day.
I could tell.
Yeah, that one was a little corny though.
Yeah,
That
that was.
one wouldn't have made the pass. Uh, I would have got kicked out
At
of
the
the studio
club,
for
they
that
would
one.
have
Would
not
have
been
got kicked out of the
happy.
studio for that one. But yeah, so we chopped around again, making an all-time high. S&Ps did not trade 5,800, which that's the next price that I'm going to be looking at, right? How do we respond to what is now another major psychological level? Anyone who's trading the S&Ps is going to know that we're trading 5,800. So the market reaction to that is going to tell us a lot. If they just buy right through it, then buyers are convinced right now about these markets and pushing through. I don't believe that we have anything as far as news goes on the calendar tomorrow. Let's see. Tomorrow is the 19th. Nope. Tomorrow is the 20th. Canadian retail sales, Canadian PPI number, nothing major. So we will see how market participants think about these prices we're currently trading. Um,
Okay.
the last thing I want to talk about, so we did take a house account trade, myself, Coach Robert, Deanna, and Deanna was the one that really pushed us like, hey guys, are we going to take this trade or not? We were talking about it. And we took a long trade. I really liked that long that we took. It was during a low volume, slow time in the markets. And I think this was a great example of you don't need to trade all day. You could take one trade for the day. You don't have to be right about the market direction. You can take a setup that looks like a great setup, take the trade, and just be done with your day. Uh, During the 1 p.m. hour, we came down and tested the opening range, right? Green box here is the 3 minute opening range. We came down here, tested it. We saw that failed selling move, right? Where relative, so this volume for the session was basically nothing, right? Not a whole lot. Um, but one of the higher volume bars outside of the first hour. So pretty significant, right? Where I'm looking at this and this is failed selling, where they tried to bring the market lower and they were this is a nice trade if you shorted from at the highs. But if you're shorting down here, this is failed selling, right? They get back into that opening range, cannot accept back into those prices, and this is where we were taking along. We got into it a little bit late. I think we got in at 85, but still, a 7 point trade with a 5 lot. I think we made about $500, and that's a repeatable pattern, Coach. We closed above the high of that candle, and
The J trade.
yeah, we closed above the high. We came back, and I really love this pattern. Um, we closed above the high of it. We tested back into it here. Couldn't accept those prices. And this close to me, I think I had mentioned it on the call on the segment as well. This close above was really important, right? Because we've seen so many times where it tests the high of the candle and comes back. This close above at least told me that the market was trying to trade above 57.85. So when we test back into it, our entry was lower than that close. A nice 7 point trade there. And we were not
Wow.
right about where the market went ultimately. It went back down, but
That's a
knowing
scalp.
exactly, knowing, analyzing the market, seeing what it's giving you and taking it from there, I think we took about 70% of what was 100% of that move. So, and D just said it too, around IB high. I also realized something that I was measuring the initial, I'm measuring the initial balance incorrectly. So the way I was measuring it, make fun of me if you want to. Uh, so the candle that starts at 9:30 Central, I was measuring that high. That's not correct because that's adding another 3 minutes. That
That's
one
where it
should be the initial
closes.
balance. Yeah, so I was measuring it a little bit wrong, but similar area. The initial balance high was actually 57.82. I was measuring it at 57.87, but for some reason the market liked that 87 as well. So good enough. Uh,
Oh, I won't make fun of you. I'm sure that there'll be plenty of other people that will do that for you.
oh yeah, absolutely. Cami Capital, what's going on, Cami? Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining. Good to see you here. What else? Anything you got on the S&Ps,
Hey,
Coach?
no, if we're done with that, we have a question or a comment from Lido, the incel trader. How do I know when to stop trading? Um,
Great question. You want to take that one?
um, okay, I was in an XFA, made $2,300, kept thinking price was going to go to VWAP. So I took a bunch of shorts, which just blew me up. Now, I'll do one quick question is you're up 2,300. One of the old rules is if you give half of that back, you're done. Um, the next
Yeah,
one
that's a good way to look at
is
it.
if you're having like if you're having a losing day, you, you can't lose more than, to me, I'll cut it off at 12% of my equity. But it's a little different with when you're up money. And if 2,300, I don't know the size of your account, but if that was a $50,000 combine and you're up 2,300, that's about as that's about as good as you could expect.
So
Um,
what's even worse, it's a 50K XFA. So that's real money. That's twice the Top Step allotted daily loss limit. You did your job. You did your job. Now, my question to you is why is 2,300 not enough? And if you saw more good trade setups, then absolutely take them. But were d- I would ask yourself the question, did you at some point think, "Hey, I'm up this amount and I could do more," right? I could make more money. Because I would think that what got you to that point was some process-based trades, and then at some point the focus switched to monetary, and that's when you went wrong.
oh boy, that's a good point, Coach. Because I the last part of that comment was kept thinking price was going to VWAP. So you took a bunch of shorts. I read that as you were making money on the buy side.
Initially, right?
This is why I will own 90% of the time. I'll only trade one side, but I'm either coming in to buy it and I can limit my losses and let my winners ride, or I'm coming in to sell it. Key point here is you felt that it would go to VWAP.
Mhm.
One of the things to eliminate, it's not if it's above VWAP, this to me the sells are getting out of longs, taking profit. If it gets under VWAP, that's a different story because now you're going the volume, it's under volume, and you can get that trade close to volume. By selling it and expecting it to go to VWAP, you're going against the flow. I hope that's a valuable lesson because if you can put it, you had it the run today.
Mhm.
So first thing is, this is a long-term rule. If you give half, 50% of what you were up, done, go away. Two things. Don't get short. I don't want to get short the market above VWAP.
There you go. Um, and I think I will trade the market 2 sides a little bit more than Coach Paul will. I do agree with
Mhm.
that. You wanna be very careful about, shorting above VWAP. But I asked Lito a question, and we'll get, this is, specific to your trading, but the time of the trades, right? So you said that those shorts happened before 1 PM Eastern time, which is if what I'm looking at in this chop here. Let's just think, and I think I said this during, the 2 PM segment with D. Think about the market participants, right? Not about what you want, because right now you want the market to drop from these prices, right? 2160, and you want it to drop towards VWAP. You were right, but the timing of your trade was wrong. So you probably got chopped up in this action here. Look at the time that the market did sell off. Think about all of the market participants that are long from last night at 6 PM Eastern. If I'm long, I'm sitting here chilling. If I'm still holding this position, I'm not thinking about taking profits. When did they eventually take profits? When the market got to a major level and could not get back above it, right? We traded to this 2200 and we're getting into the last couple hours of the day. That's when you got the move that you were looking for. So a move like that, you're going to need some volume to come in to push it lower, right? Because so far the market is telling us that we're trading above VWAP. You're shorting in a low volume time where there's really no I don't necessarily see an incentive for a long to get out of this position here, where we're chopping around. But getting into the close and getting closer to the close, we see that volume pick up because anyone who is long on a day trade is ultimately going to need to get out of that trade. And that's when we see the volume pick up. That's when we see that move back to view up. Now, uh, that's a specific trade setup, but I think you have to take into account time of day in that type of trade. Um, But whatever you do, don't give back that much money. And if you want to, I can send you my Venmo and you can send it directly to me instead.
Oh, that's cold. I-
My trading mentor used to say the same thing. He's like, "Yo, you guys want to give back money to the markets? Don't give it to someone you don't know. Give it to me instead. At least you know where your money's going." Right? You made twenty three
I'll
hundred
even
bucks.
do better.
Go ahead.
I'll give them a discount.
You see? So, and really, Lito, right? Where the market does not give a shit, to be honest, right? Where
Yeah.
like how many times are you going to allow yourself to do that? And that's for all of us, right? Where you made a great amount of money, right? That's that could be somebody's salary for 2 weeks, and to give it back, that give back that much of it in that short period of time, give it to me instead. I'll take it. I'll take it. And you don't want to do that, right? Because then I'm going to sit here and be like, Lido, thanks. I'm going to have, I'm going to order a nice bottle of wine, hold it up to the camera and say, this one's on Lido. You don't want to do that. And I'm, joking around a little bit, but seriously, right? You read the market really well. Take advantage of the hard work that you do because it's not the easy thing to do, right? This is a hard way to make easy money, if you will. So, you want to see something from it.
And I will bring that again. Is these are the hard lessons of trading. Absorb that, because when we first enter this business, um, we don't we really don't experience that. When you
Hmm.
look at a chart, wow, I could just, and I know from experience, I've done what you've done.
Yeah, we all
Probably,
have Lido.
yeah. It's so learn from that. Understand, okay, if I'm up big, and it's going to happen, I'll have some drawdown, but 50% is the most, and shut it down and go reward yourself. Do something you enjoy. And I mean, walk away and don't just turn off the computer. Get out of Dodge. Whatever you enjoy, whatever it is, go get a nice lunch. Go take a bike ride. Whatever it is, just get away.
Absolutely. Uh, and what I would say now is separate from it, right? Separate from it. Identify what it is that you did wrong. Don't try to make that money back tomorrow because it's no longer yours, right? But whatever the market presents to you tomorrow is yours, right? And then you just be a better steward of what the market's presenting to you and continuing to do that. So good job being able to make the 2300. You're able to read the market correctly. Reward yourself for the work that you do. We stuck on the equities a lot here.
Yeah,
Was
almost
crude
equities
with
day.
crude and gold? Were they interesting enough to talk about? Let's see.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. Which one do you want to do first, Coach? Crude or gold?
Crude. Let's start with the daily.
All right.
So the daily, if we make that a little bit bigger, doesn't look like much happened. Now, when we zoom in, what happened on the daily? We got yesterday. We've been playing with that's the 20-day moving average. We
Yep.
talked about that V type of bottom. We're extending out, um, and we're getting above the shorter term, the 20-day moving average, which I know some um, funds will take profit on shorts if they're short, or begin a long, but mostly take profits because the general trend has been a big down, nice trade to the downside. Um, so coming into, we'll look at the half hour. We talked
Let's
about this
get the
yesterday.
market open. We did talk about this yesterday. Here is the Globex session open.
First
Damn.
thing I want to look at is the 200 anchor of VWAP. And let me ask you, Coach, what do you
Mhm.
see from there?
Buyers. They bought it. This looks very similar to the equity markets, actually.
It looks very similar. Um, and notice that opening was the low was made. We went back and tested it, which can be a dramatic move if you're long. You might even think that, hey, I got to get short now. Excuse me, I got to plug my computer in.
All good.
Um, so let's blow that out a little.
You want to zoom into it?
Zoom into it to the
All
opening.
right, to the open. Let's go to a smaller time frame. Let's go to, there we go. Here's a 3-minute chart.
Let's go to the 3 minute.
Low is made on the open.
Low was made. So now we're above the 200 on the half hour. All right. I myself, I'm eliminating the sell side. I'll lose money. I could lose money. But I'm eliminating it, and we get as we go through, we're over VWAP. For a, I mean, if you bought that breakout, you could either, the first time you could have scratched it, but the breakout with VWAP is always, especially on the 3 minute, is always so much better.
Yep.
Um, and what time did that happen?
This was right around 6:45 Central Time.
Oh, so that was just before the open.
It was early.
So there there was a couple opportunities. Um, Now, as we've talked, Coach, if 8 o'clock comes around or 9 o'clock Central,
9 Central or 8 Central?
oh, at 9 Eastern,
There we go. Right there.
the we'll just call it the pit opening.
Yep.
I know there's no pit now. We talked about, but now it's a different little story. I mean, different story. I want to buy. It's already $1.50 higher at this point.
This is the
Most
exact same
likely,
trade as the S&P. Like to the
kind of
T.
is.
I don't know the correlation between between crude oil and the ES, but this is the exact same trade. It's crazy.
And look at that VWAP. So now I'm going to come in. Do I want to buy it? And now the biggest volume is usually the opening on New York Open.
Hmm.
We'll call it the pit opening. Um, Wait 3 minutes. No, I don't want to buy it. um, wow. So as you would talk about, it's all relative to the time frame and the volume. This one, if you came in, I mean, that was a great sell. Heck,
Yeah.
that was about 50 cents.
Yeah, from the opening range break down to the VWAP, and that blue line is the high of the FOMC reaction. Yeah, 60-cent move. You can take anywhere from 30 to 80% of that. It's a great trade.
We talked about it, but, NASDAQ, 40 points is pretty good money. And it's
Yep,
very possible here.
absolutely.
40 points is $400. But just going without that is like, this is when we talk about volume. It doesn't, they don't want it. I don't want it. And I want to buy it. So I'll
Right.
let the first frame it out, let it happen. Now I can make a decision, another decision when I want to buy it. The longer term VWAP, look where we go down to.
Yep.
Um, so then off to the races again. Um,
Oh,
One
your green
thing.
screen's moving there, coach.
Oh, sorry, but you can continue, Coach.
All good. All good. Nope. There you go. We got it back. There
There
it
it
is.
is.
I thought
Yeah,
another
I got
dinosaur was coming
excited
through.
about. I think because I'm getting bullish crude. I mean, but look at that move. So here's market. You could take both sides. You could look to sell it. I don't think it would be easy to be a seller and a buyer, just personally.
Mhm.
Um, but using VWAP and volume to define areas is a great tool. Longer term, coach, I'm kind of friendly to the crude.
Yeah,
So
I
I
would agree with
filled
you.
up my tank yesterday, and I'm not going to I'm going to carry it.
I would agree with you. I did take a small crude oil short into the end of the day. Didn't really get the move I was looking for, but ended up a profitable trade. But yeah, higher time frame. Do we just go back into the 70 to 80 range play that crude likes to do? If so, great. I will be leaning to the long side until $80, the level that should not be mentioned, but gets mentioned all the time now. Uh, Actually, the last
Okay.
thing I want to, we're kind of running out of time. Let's go to gold real quick. Gold did make,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
no, it didn't actually. That all time high was yesterday. So gold kind of just chopped around today, but let's look at it because it's still presented an opportunity. And I think going into the rest of the week, the high, because this high hasn't been taken out, right? We'll look at the high of the FOMC candle. Let's go to a 3-minute chart. High of the reaction was so the high of the reaction, the initial reaction to the rate decision was 26.15. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Yeah, so we had this secondary reaction that made the all-time high at 26.27, but the news candle where we see the most volume, that's the one that I personally like to frame out a lot. 26.15. We chopped around there, but again, coach, a lot of these markets look exactly the same. Uh,
Well, buying and selling is what markets do.
right.
Uh, uh, that w- there you go. That was last night's opening.
Last night's open. Yep.
Okay.
Where we did. What's the green line? The green line is anchored VWAP. So right now this one is anchored to last night's open. Um,
On a
but
3-minute chart.
on a 3 minute. This is on. Yeah, this is on a 3 minute. Yeah. Well, this is a 30-minute chart, but I did the anchor on the 3 minute. But yeah. So we checked down towards yesterday's lows. Again, volume didn't go with price. What do you mean when you say that, Jay? Price went lower. This VWAP never left this opening range, and then started to become a support. Right?
Boy,
Where
that was a great buy.
even here, right, where this is not the price is leaving the range here, you could take this trade, but again, it's the same as taking the short, right? This short here, VWAP hasn't left the range. To me, this is a 55% probability trade because VWAP is dead in the center of the range. The same thing for the buy, right? Yes, we get to see the market what it did after the fact, but this buy here on this breakout is about a 55% probability. As we get, a little
Go back and test
we
as
get a
we
retest.
often
This
do.
is this may be a 60% probability now. Why? Because we saw some selling and they could not accept back in that range. Maybe 60%. As this VWAP is increasing, that probability of that trade increases a little bit. Now, where is our support? Right where the average price is. That probability is now maybe 65%, right? Just based on that analysis alone. Um, and then
Oh,
yeah, we
wow,
just
that
took
was
off
a
from
great
there.
trade.
Yeah, it is. And then right back to it. So
Okay.
go ahead, coach.
I just would ask the audience, are you seeing the pattern? I mean,
That's the key. And you can apply this pattern to, and we've done this in Discord. So if you've been with us since Discord times, we've seen this in every market. I'm just going to pull up a random one. Coach, this is lean hogs on a, we haven't done this in a little while.
the
Here's lean
bigs.
hogs on a 3-minute chart. There's the opening range. Here's an anchored VWAP to it. VWAP is dead in the center, right? It tried to leave early, dead in the center. This is a range bound market. On these extensions, outside of the opening range, these are not breakouts to take because the volume is not going with you. But look at how great of a short opportunity it is. So if you're a range bound trader with an established range and an anchored VWAP, to me, to both of us, we've seen it so many times, coach, that can help you identify the pattern or the personality for the day. The market's not going anywhere. This market is trading this range and is going to stay in this range until that volume leaves it, and it never did.
Yeah, we didn't even get to Bitcoin. Um,
Let's do it. Let's do it. We got
let's
time.
do it.
Go ahead. This was on your scouting report, so let's go. You got it.
Let's go to the opening last night. By the way, that opening can be anytime really with Bitcoin. So we're above the 200, and that's the first half hour. It's the same trade.
Same exact trade.
Um, I was on my scouting report. I did when we talk about expectations, I liked it being long. All right. I didn't think it would be up 800. It's a possibility, but bringing that in, we don't, on the scouting report, it's where we're looking. I've been looking at it for a while.
Mhm.
Um, it's making, as Coach Dakota says, on a different time frame, it's making higher highs,
Yep.
higher lows. Another word for that is it's trending. And to me, defining a trending market is it above the 200 moving average. Then I can overlay volume, and then we can really start drilling into shorter term time frames and find a place that I can take reasonable risk.
100%.
I hope that helps people. And
Let's go.
that's wow, we're out of time.
We are out
Um,
of time. Um, Go ahead, coach.
I was just gonna say I'll leave it at that.
All right. And the one thing, and again, part of the reason Coach Paul and I want to do this segment at the time that we have it right now is because the markets are closed, and we can, again, both of us are basketball coaches. We understand how important film room is, right? Where you don't have to make any decisions. You can read what happened. So then when it's time to make a decision, you're better equipped with information to potentially put on a risk, right? Nothing we're saying here is like, yes, this is a guarantee. It's going to work all the time. Um, but it's a way to look at the markets that I've found helps, right? So now when I see this happening in real time, right, and I've seen this happen, I don't even know how many thousands of times now. When it happens, all I have to do is react and not try to make a read, right? I can react to what it's doing and then just assess how good of a job the market is doing at what I've seen it do 1,000 times over. Um, so whatever your strategy is, doesn't have to be this one. It could be whatever. Get to that point of proficiency where you can say, and again, proficiency doesn't mean that you're always going to win every trade, but when you see something happen, you can take it from that point. So uh, thank you everyone for joining. Make sure you manage your risk in whatever you do with your trading. When you make some money, make sure you keep it. And I think that's it. I will be on Fast Markets tomorrow with Dakota. Uh, I believe MP and Andre. Make sure you join the other segments on Top Step as well. Not just us here, not just the day show, but we have Coach Ray, Coach Vince in Discord doing classes every day, 6 p.m.
Coach
Central,
Hoops.
7 p.m. Central. We have Coach Hoop, who just started his segment yesterday. He's going to be doing those every Wednesday at 5:15 Central. So right when we're done here. Of course, we have Dakota with slow markets at 7:30. We have Deanna with the London Open at 3:30 Central Time. I got it right that time, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
That
I highly
conversion,
recommend it too if you're
I
up or if
ab-
you're in Europe
yes,
or
Deanna,
anywhere. She's
uh,
good.
yeah, and has been trading the Nikkei recently. M- Absolutely killing the Nikkei, and just great at what she does. Uh, And I think that's it. I think I did my show notes. We talked about Brian Shannon. If you haven't done so already, hit the thumbs up for us here. Tell your friends to like and subscribe. Maybe come join us, ask us questions. We're always here to answer and to help you with your trading journeys. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Coach, thank you as always. And we will talk to you
Thank
all
you,
tomorrow.
Coach. All right.
Bye.
Bye.